You know what I like? I really like fighting games. The way you can get a sense for who a character is based solely on their moveset is really appealing to me, and it's part of what makes video games such a special medium to me. And since Street Fighter 2 kinda sorta invented this concept, I wanted to make a video on it. Ultra Street Fighter 2 is one of the first fighting games I sunk a lot of time into, so let me set the stage before I talk design. For some reason, I let Capcom trick me into buying Street Fighter 2 for $40, because I was a stupid kid and I was a Nintendrone, so I wanted the Switch launch to go well. I didn't really touch it for a few years, but one day, I wanted to work out more consistently. I didn't like the way I looked, but I didn't want to leave the house either. I realized this game was actually the perfect solution. See, this game's arcade mode shows you each opponent you've beaten and gives you 10 seconds to press start after a game over. That's vital because to start, I was quite terrible. Couldn't even beat normal mode. So I designed a challenge to do pull-ups or squats every game over until I won. There's usually just enough time. It would get exponentially harder. 5 additional squats for every opponent I beat before getting a game over. So if I beat 8 fighters then lost, I would do 40 squats. You can make it even harder if you want to try it at home. Before I knew it, I was getting way further and my legs were looking better than ever. So I decided I wouldn't stop until I finished the challenge with every character. This decision is what helped me develop a deep appreciation for Street Fighter 2 designs and why they've endured so long. You can see Street Fighter DNA in just about every fighting game. I think it's important to understand as someone who loves making movesets. The first time I ever beat arcade mode, I played Ryu, of course. It's the most important fighting game moveset ever made. You can kinda tell why when you first play him, but he's not flawless. For a new player, the 6-button system of Street Fighter is really daunting because half the buttons in this game feel redundant or pointless. Like I was pressing standing medium kick and I was wondering why anyone would ever use this ass move that doesn't hit practically anything, and the answer is, don't worry about it. There's a lot of moves that look the same but act differently, which was confusing. I kept losing interactions and not knowing why because the priority system is something that's invisible to you. I got so frustrated I'd look up combo tutorials in old Street Fighter 2 strategy videos from the 90s.
Tangle with me and you've got problems, dude. I'm fast, I've got a fireball, and my dragon punches take off loads of energy.
I'd try and figure out how to simplify all these buttons into an easy-to-understand game plan because spamming fireballs mindlessly wasn't working for some reason. His main game plan is to shoot fireballs, then anti-air them if they jump in. That's really simple, but unfortunately, I still sucked too much to do a DP on command. Luckily, that's when I discovered something that changed my life. Jumping medium kick into crouching medium kick into Hadouken did a lot of damage. Not only was it shredding life bars, but it looked cool, and I felt really cool doing it. No matter how many times I did it, it felt better every time. All the inputs just flowed so naturally, like there was a brain-muscle connection implanted in humans for thousands of years designed specifically to do crouching kick into quarter-circle punch. And since Ryu is really easy, that was all I really needed to finally beat arcade mode for the first time. SF2 is a game primarily about spamming fireballs, so all I needed was learning to zone and to do one combo. And to be fair, for lower difficulties, that's actually good design. The system mechanics favor Ryu over Ken, so I usually don't pick him in this game. He's definitely an interesting character in later versions of SF2 though, with his crazy kicks and knee bash. But rather than talk more about Shotos, I want to talk more about one of the most interesting control archetypes that SF2 introduced, the charge characters. Running down the checklist of SF2 characters, you'll be learning a lot of them. Nobody likes charge characters immediately. They don't make any sense. In Smash Bros, you can very clearly see when someone is charging something and when it's done, but to do these, it doesn't look like you're charging anything. You're walking backwards. I don't want to do a fireball over there, I want to do one right here. So you learn that the game doesn't really want you to hold back, it wants you to hold down back. And that's awkward enough, but I can admit it works really well for Guile. He's incentivized to crouch block, which leaves him open to aerials, which he can anti-air with flash kick. The projectile is so good that you don't mind spending a lot of time sitting still. Plus, he has command normals that let him move while storing charge if you need to. It's great design, even if it's not my thing. Building a character around holding down back was objectively very creative. He has some very cool looking normals too, even if you don't really use a lot of them. This silly kick especially has my heart. My only complaint is this nightmarish Dorito input he has for his super. But then you have characters like Chun-Li, Bison, or Honda, where these are horrible anti-airs, so spending a whole bunch of time charging down is a weakness that makes a lot less sense. Honestly, I hated playing Chun-Li. She gets a lot more fun in future games, but I was constantly wishing she had regular motion inputs. It feels like parts of her kit are working against each other. Like, have you ever tried to do the spinning bird kick while wall jumping? It's so stupid, and it's basically the only use you have for ever doing that awful move. I don't like that she barely ever wants to jump, because her visual design and various moves give you the impression that she'd be good at jumping in, but that's a trap. Now, what she is good at, for some reason, is doing a third of your life bar from this wimpy looking throw. Just walk around with your broken walk speed, poke people, and throw them. She has a fun super, but I don't think Chun-Li's debut was great. Honda was a lot of fun, though. I still have a soft spot for Honda, and I don't care. The butt slam kinda sucks, however not needing to use it that often meant that I felt myself getting better with forward charges a lot faster. Plus, he's the only character with both charge moves and a motion input, which was really cool to me. Getting cross-ups into command grab feels great. Honestly, even today, 90% of my Honda gameplay is fishing for command grabs and pushing buttons on my soundboard. Fun fact, Honda was the only character I could take a game off someone with when I went to my first ever in-person Super Turbo tournament. If you're wondering what happened with the other 4 games, I got throw looped by Boxer. Maybe it's a good thing he's not in SF6. Speaking of throws, we have Zangief and T-Hawk as the original grapplers. Zangief has been deconstructed many times, and his design resonates with many, but not me. His big command grab is fun and all, but I think my favorite part of Gief is this myriad of weird command normals like the headbutt, which basically never hits but will stun your ass instantly if it does. I also like the green hand, which is just such a weird idea for a move that I have to love it. It implies that he could be using Ki to fight at longer ranges like Ryu, he just doesn't wanna. I think that those parts of him are the ones that I like most, since they don't usually get used when making grapplers in other fighting games. People nowadays pretty much know what a grappler is by now, but back then they didn't, and it's a cool reminder of that. T-Hawk, by contrast, is the way less conventional grappler. He can get in, he has a DP, and a far bigger focus on his aerials, and yet he's the one I always gravitate to when I want to spin the stick and do big damage. Later games give him the Condor Spire, an advancing special that makes a lot of sense and rounds out his kit, but in this game, he doesn't have it. The fact that I can't rely on it makes me play slower, but in a way that I kind of enjoy sometimes. No clue why. Maybe it's more surface level. Maybe I like T-Hawk just because of his silly animations, pink outfit, and amazing move names like Mexican Typhoon. Sometimes the design works for you without trying very hard to impress you. I still think his forward light punch is stupid though. Next up, I wanted to talk about some funny inputs that aren't very common in future fighting games. Most of the charge characters have mashing moves, which have been heavily phased out in recent years, but DJ has a funny combination of a charge move and a mashing move. Machine Gun Upper further sets itself apart because unlike every other mash move where you basically just want to mash as fast as possible, this move has to be mashed very specifically. You mash fast until the 3rd hit, and then you let go to get a 4th one. Why? I don't know. It kinda reminds me of Bowser's Recovery, but in reverse. I don't know if I like these kinds of moves. Some more transparency for the input would go a long way. However, it's so cool looking, and I find myself throwing games just trying to land it, so it gets a pass. Another one I came to appreciate was Cammy's Hooligan combo. Cammy as a whole is a really fascinating character in SF2 because playing Cammy without a dive kick just feels fundamentally wrong. Her game plan is not as well defined as other characters. She has some good moves that don't really coalesce into something good. Her damage is relatively low, she loses super hard to fireballs, and her slow jumps are a death sentence. Dive kick is so central to her kit that not having it feels like I'm playing a Cammy Skinwalker. So what does she get? Hooligan. It's got a weird input, but it's incredibly powerful. It's quick enough to be a jump scare in neutral, and you can mix people up by doing a command grab or falling with a low. It's a very cool move, but not enough to save her competitively. Still, I hated fighting Cammy when I was doing arcade mode. Round start was such a pain in the ass every time against Cammy because her specials make you afraid to jump or block high. She might be trash in this game, but she always gave me the most trouble by far just because the AI would anti-air me every single time I jumped and I was addicted to doing jump-in combos. She's super quick, she has hard to react mix-ups, she grabs you constantly. She would kick my ass near the end of every run. But before my rage could ever reach a boiling point, she'd hit that pose. And I'd remember what I'm fighting for. Do it for your legs, Sleepy. Do it for your legs. What were we talking about? Alright, Tiger Knee. The 4 Kings were very experimental movesets, from Boxer's Tap exploring negative edge to Claw doing whatever the hell any of this is. Even Ryu's first enemy has something to talk about with this very funky looking motion input. This move can only be done on the ground, but it ends with an up input, meaning you can't do it without jumping. That is, of course, unless you disguise it or just do it really fast. Tiger Knee is like an easier version of Fei Lung's Chicken Wing, which, as an aside, this dude pretty much only has weird inputs, but I don't have much else to say on him. Capcom has been phasing out these weirdo inputs in newer games. Ultra Street Fighter 2 Fei Lung has a pretty normal half-circle forward kick for Chicken Wing, which, yeah, is easier, but it takes away Fei Lung's charm when you do that. Tiger Knee was also changed in future games to have an easier input, which is kind of a shame, because I think it's fun to do. Sure, the new one is more consistent and draws a clean parallel with Ryu, which is nice since his gameplay is meant to get that point across, but strictly as a move to input, I think it's fun. Other devs agree, since the TK gets refined and put to much better use in games like Guilty Gear, where it's not explicitly used, but characters have incentive to learn how to do that input for instant air specials, keeping the spirit of the move alive in a subtler but weirdly more intuitive way. But if we're talking unique and hard inputs, then let's finish with my favorite character in the game, by far, Akuma. While Ryu mastered the Hadouken and Ken the Shoryuken, that only left the Tatsu to be filled by Akuma, which you'd think is lame, but no. Akuma's Tatsu has altered my brain chemistry permanently. There is no character more fun than Akuma, and it's easy to see why. The point of Akuma is to basically be Ken and Ryu on crack. He gets to have absolutely everything. Broken Tatsu, broken DP, broken Fireball, Air Fireball, 2 Air Fireball! His frame data is stupid, he kills you in 2 hits, he can teleport. What else does he need? A command grab? Oh. Akuma's Raging Demon Super is a large part of why he's my favorite character in the game. It's the most unique super in terms of visuals, gameplay, and inputs. It's famous for a reason. It's just sick as hell. The damage is absurd, and comboing into it is the greatest feeling you can get playing Street Fighter, but doing so is not easy. You cannot directly combo hits into grabs, but the simpler barrier is that the input is really weird and hard. It involves whiffing normals to do it, which is normally a sign that you've inputted your special move wrong. But, whatever. It's weird, but it's not a lot to remember. Why is it so hard? It's frame perfect. Yeah, that stands out in Ultra Street Fighter 2 because the input reader for every other special move is fairly lenient, but for this one move, it's a nightmare and a half. You can press every single button in order, but if you hold a button for a frame too long or leave a gap slightly too big, then it just won't come out. It was really frustrating for me because I love doing supers to end rounds, and Akuma ended up as the only character I just couldn't do a super with. I spent hours at a time for several days trying to do Akuma's Raging Demon input until my thumbs hurt. And one day, it finally got consistent. I could throw air fireballs and then confirm into demons on command. I felt like I had finally become good at the game. I ripped through the rest of the arcade mode characters on max difficulty and decided I was ready to move on to other fighting games, because now nobody would play with me. Anyway, we're basically done. I was brief about some characters and didn't get to talk about Blanca or my distaste for Bison. Shoot, I just realized I've been calling him Bison. Anyway, I'm trying to make shorter videos. You might notice that this is not a Smash Bros. Redesign, and that's because I'm still quite depressed about losing someone I care about. Depression leads to stagnation, which kills expression. Therefore, I can't create. But when I can't create, I lose my sense of identity. And that deepens the feelings of emptiness. You can see how this is a vicious cycle, right? Well, I don't want to live like this forever. So I'm just trying to make something. Anything that proves I'm still here. Sorry if it kinda sucks. Makes me all the more impressed at how you fine folks on my server do it. Always so excited to share your movesets, no matter how niche or regardless of how many people actually read it. Your passion goes into every submission, and it helps build you instead of taking pieces of you away. It's badass, yo! Could learn a lot from that. Sorry to ramble again, but gloom aside, I hope you found something in this video insightful. Entertaining at least, maybe, but if not, that's okay. I'll be back with something else another day. Bye.